traditional learning path of the ninth house results in the worldview and the accumulated wisdom through the expansion and multiplicity of Jupiter, the traditional ruler of the ninth house in Sagittarius. The planet Jupiter itself pulls from the second esoteric ray of love and wisdom. Jupiter provides multiple doctrines and grants philosophical permission to explore the vast reaches of cosmic diversity. The global beneficence is expanded further, not only on the physical plane, but the astral and the continuum of cosmic evolution. In the Persian, Arabic, European traditions and in the Jostava Veda, Jupiter is associated with the yellow metal tin, as tin itself was pliable and easy to mold and reshape. The metal exhibiting the very influences of Jupiter, being open to remodeling and reshaping the cosmic libraries, never fixating on an ultimatum, but more on the constant, ever-changing values of the cosmic arena. In Jyotish astrology, the ninth house signifies Dharma, the active state of planetary form in physical reality. Thus, the creation of the Navamsa ninth divisional chart, which presents the dharmic strength of planets in their active state rather than static as in the natal or Rashi charts. As this is the house that deals with what we expand into after birth, through wisdom accumulated through our theatre of life. As Jupiter represents the spiritual doctrine in the natal chart, when one traverses the ninth house, they come into contact along their journey with people who act as avatars for Jupiter's love and wisdom. As these people are sent to internationalize the individual's limited but expanding concept of existence beyond the self.
How did she die?
She got very sick.
My mother's a singer. She's taught many songs.
Oh, really?
Would you like to hear one?
Yeah.
From this valley they say you are leaving. We shall miss your bright eyes and sweet smile, for you take with you all of the sunshine that has brightened our pathway a while. Then come sit by my side if you love me. Do not hasten to bid me adieu. Just remember the Red River Valley and the cowboy that loved you so true. Just remember the Red River Valley and the cowboy that loved you so true.
The ninth house is the house of professors, priests, and those who seem destined to pontificate over certain matters and topics without end. As Jupiter expands and multiplies the relativity of time, slowing this area down for those with planets in this house, so as to define the nature, morality, and law therein of this house, as well as the bountiful bliss and essential quality provided by Jupiter. The ninth house trines the first, as both are ruled by fire signs, the first house symbolizing our life path, and Jupiter's ninth house the Dharma, which powers us forward into life's lessons and the challenges therein. The human body parts ruled by the ninth house in traditional astrology are the hips and knees, as well as the spine, which channels the fierce Kundalini energy from the Muladhara chakra. The word Dharma in Sanskrit means that which holds. Jeffrey Hopkins translated the words of the Dalai Lama Taiting Guizhou in his book The Buddhism of Tibet. I quote, "All existence are dharmas, phenomena, in the sense that hold or bear their own entity or character." In this sense, the rough term refers to any elevated action of the body, speech, or mind, is then regarded as dharma because through doing such an action, one is protected or held back from all sorts of disasters, compared to if one remains static and tamasic. The practice of these actions take place through the ninth house. I quote, "Dharma is called Dharma because it upholds the world. Therefore, whatever possesses this characteristic of support and sustenance is Dharma." Unquote. The ninth house is the realm of public divination, sacred guidance, interpretation of divine will, which culminates in the erosion, dissolving, and disembodiment of energies in the 12th house. As the form and structure of the 10th house attempts to control but eventually fails to restrict the ever-expanding growth of Jupiter. And so the body itself cannot contain the immense expansion, and must thus disappear into the 12th house energy. Because the ninth house signifies ideology, theory, theology, sacred geometry, and sacred symbols, all of which come under the freeing expansionism of Jupiter, the ninth house also rules over fanaticism, where the unwavering, loving, all-encompassing generosity of Jupiter can become too much, as too much of a good thing isn't good at all. The excess that Jupiter provides the travelers traversing the ninth is the indirect test of the Guru, as the Guru won't judge nor decipher, but rather allow you to deal with the accumulation and spoil which gathers around you. I quote, "Fear prophets, and those prepared to die for the truth. For as a rule they make many others die with them, often before them, at times instead of them." Unquote. The ninth house houses the zealous and demagogues, who, through the allowance to expand, begin to explore avenues that aren't viewed as ethical by the masses. However, due to the expansive house where these ideologies are formed, many people eventually become addicted to the freedom of the ninth, where their ideas go without being checked. The English philosopher, biologist, anthropologist Herbert Spencer, who had his ascendant sitting in Sagittarius, became famous for his hypothesis of social Darwinism. This hypothesis put forward was based on naturalist Charles Darwin's contribution to the science of evolution. Charles Darwin had Jupiter in the ninth house, however, social Darwinism became the foundation for eugenics, segregation, and the demonization of the races, which culminated in some of the worst atrocities committed by mankind, as Jupiter allows for people to be infected with enthusiasm as they experience the freedom of the ninth house.
Ladies and gentlemen, this great meeting is gathered here tonight to hear the policy and faith of fascism. If you think the present system of things can really see you through, then it's idle for our new and virile faith of fascism. I come to you with a new and revolutionary conception of politics, of economics, and of life itself. We have another doctrine to put before you. And now, at long last, our men of the war, our men of 1914, the grim ranks of our ex-servicemen, again and again betrayed by politicians. They join hands with the new youth, the new generation, which remembers the mighty past. We say that England is not dead. We say, and I ask you to say with us, lift up your voices in this great meeting in the heart of England. Send to all the world a message. England lives and marches on.
As the masses watch those who express the ninth house energy in full, seek not rank or precedence, which is the vulgar prize, but instead attempt to understand the sage-like persona of this house, as they attempt to blend into one harmonious whole. But due to the expression of Jupiter and the wrath that engulfs those who accumulate too much substance, the function of the 10th house is activated, as Saturn restricts and decays the buildup of waste. Saturn being the opposite of Jupiter, yet ruling over the same cosmic energies, has a unique effect when placed in the 9th house. Gaston Bachelard was a French philosopher who made contributions in the field of philosophy of science. Gaston had Saturn in his 9th house, and it was he who introduced the concept of epistemological obstacles, whereby the method of learning was based on the limitations and set values, such as literacy, environmental limitations, and otherwise. Gaston inquired to the unconscious obstacles to scientific thought, and then the ruptures and breakaway from it. Saturn in the 9th house causes doubt in the learning process of the 9th, which leads to great reflection on the topic. This house is where we embrace the world as a whole, where the constant grind and lack of fulfillment is left behind. This house being linked to spiritual matters leads to pilgrimages, but in the form of finding oneself. As the journey itself is filled with philosophical guidance, sacred teachings, phenomenal evidence of the self and living proof. As every experience through the 9th house is wisdom teaching. As life becomes the university. As we live the priesthood and understand the ritual communication between the human and the divine, beliefs and faith.
In a world gone shallow, in a world gone mean. Sometimes there's things.
Because Jupiter expands time, the classroom of the ninth house can be learned from in full, as here we learn to slow down ourselves after coming from the brutality and the Phahatic splendor of the eighth house. This is where we learn to view the world without expecting much from it. The omnipotency of Jupiter helps human beings become conscious of their unity with the universe. Yet ethics is as important as optimism. Helena Blavatsky quoted these words from French esotericist Eliphas Levi. In theological symbolism, Jupiter is the risen and glorious Savior, and Saturn, God the Father, or the Jehovah of Moses. Helena Blavatsky highlighted the fact that the Son and Father, Jupiter and Saturn, are thus one. In his 1996 book on Jupiter, Stefan Aravio reminded us that Saturn's symbol is essentially that of Jupiter, upside down. Saturn looks down with severity and Jupiter upwards with optimism. The sacred polarity corresponds to the two interlaced triangles of the Solomon seal or Sri Yantra of Hindu tradition, one pointing optimistically to the sky, the other sternly indicating the law on the earth. Stephen Arario writes, "In contemplating the profound quantities and aspirations that Jupiter represents in astrology, I cannot help but feel that Jupiter's bigness and broad vision is inextricably linked to the perennial human search for larger truth and for an experience of oneness with the universe. In perhaps no other planet, and in no other sign than Jupiter's ruled Sagittarius, do we find a natural, spontaneous, and obvious intermixing of the physical and non-physical."
I'm gonna miss you when you go.
I'll miss you too, Ron. But you're wrong if you think that the joy of life comes principally from human relationships. God's placed it all around us. It's in everything, in anything we can experience. People just need to change the way they look at those things.
There's a rhythm and rush these days, where the lines don't move and the colors don't fade. Leaves you empty with nothing but dreams. In a world gone shallow, in a world gone mean.